So once again, welcome everybody. It's Monday. It's the Deer Park. It's the Buddha Center. It's great to see everybody today. Let's start like we normally do. Short period of bell meditation. So wherever you are behind your avatar, get into a nice meditation posture. And the idea of this little short meditation is just to focus on the sound of the bell, to get that deep listening going, to get that concentration going, so you can absorb some Dharma today. You're probably going to get distracted, happens to all of us, and when it does, just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Then there'll be a pause after the short meditation. I'll do the 3 recitations and then on with the talk for today. So I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. I kind of froze up there for a second. It's nice to see everybody today in the midst of what we're going on across the world. So today we're going to talk about in a new moment. That's kind of what we're in now, right? We're in a new moment. It's something we've never experienced before, at least most of us, anyway. None of us were around for the 1918 flu, so I think it's pretty safe to say we haven't, any of us, been through this before. So, again, we're going to talk about basically the mind in a new moment. So I start this out about a little thing I heard on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. You may be familiar with this show with Peter Sagal. It's on NPR radio. It's on Saturdays. And this was, I don't know, 5 years ago or so now. He had the producer, the television producer, Norman Lear. He's a guy famous for All in the Family. And when he was on the show, he's 94 years old, and Peter Sagal asked him how at that age of 94 that he stayed so connected with the world around him. And his reply was, he said, two simple words, over and next. We don't pay enough attention to them. When something is over, it's over. And we are on to the next. If there was a hammock in between over and next, that is being in the moment. Unquote. Pretty interesting quote from Norman Lear. And it kind of spoke directly to this Buddhist idea of be in the moment, right? You hear this a lot. It's one of those adamant instructions that we get in many talks and writings, especially about the practice of Zen, is be in the moment. And so you have to ask, what is it? And why do we do it? And how is it done in the first place? Be in the moment. Well, for Zen, and this is whether it's the Chinese version, which we call Chan, or the Japanese version, which we call Zen. In Zen practice, it starts with the recognition of the value of what is known as the beginner's mind. You've probably heard this term before, beginner's mind. It's also known as Shoshin. Well, it's a state of being. It's a way of approaching all the situations that you encounter in your life with an open mind, an open heart, fresh energy, and without the fog of unwholesome habitual reactivities. So you're able to set aside the bad habits and the bad dispositions, right? The unwholesome things that cause us problems. Now, in the 1960s, the term beginner's mind, it came into the common usage that we use it now. It came into that usage as a result of a talk that was given by Shinryu Suzuki Roshi, a venerated Zen teacher who founded the San Francisco Zen Center, and whose book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, offered a way to realize this ideal in Buddhist practice. Beginner's mind is the path to discovering the new experiences and knowledge that are invisible to the unaware. This is why we practice mindfulness and awareness, why it's important. It's a factor in the stilling of what we call the monkey mind, another term you've probably heard before. That's the state of being where the mind is just continually chattering away like some kind of excited monkey. It won't slow down, it won't focus on any one thing, it just kind of bounces around. Well, the beginner's mind opens the practitioner up to fully experiencing the reality of each moment. That's the first thing. You want to be able to actually experience what's really happening, not what you want to happen, not what you imagine is happening, not what you delude yourself into thinking is happening. And then, with that, then you want to respond to those moments appropriately. You want to do what needs to be done to make it work. Now, each of us engage in activities that have become habitual. It's human nature, right? We get to doing things so much, they become rote. From putting together jigsaw puzzles to hiking in the woods, we can find ourselves becoming complacent. There's the aphorism, been there, done that. This is how we find ourselves becoming complacent when we get that attitude. Well, I've been there, I've done that. Well, this can cause us to maybe miss a piece of the puzzle that had that little bit of sky and maybe just a really small piece of the bird's wing. Been looking for it for a while, haven't been able to find it. Or maybe you fall into a washed out gully that, hey, it wasn't along the trail last year. Again, because you're not paying attention. You're not seeing it as a new moment. So we may have in fact been there, and we may have in fact done that. But it is just as much a fact that we haven't been there right in that very moment, in that unique moment. The aphorism, if I was going to make it into a more pragmatic kind of aphorism, I would do it like this. Unique situation, unique experience, unique response. Unique situation, unique experience, unique response. So this is an intentional reminder that a past experience does not equal a present experience, though wisdom is derived from those past experiences. So those past experiences, when we work with them and think about them and contemplate them, and then we take that wisdom and we engage it in subsequent situations. So Shinryoku Suzuki said, quote, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's, there are few." Unquote. And this is because in the beginner's mind, there's always the asking, there's always the question, what is there to learn now? The beginner's mind is the one that questions. The expert's mind is always saying, this is what I know. Look at me. I have information. Now the question does arise. In the expert's mind, hey, I figure these people, I already know what they need to know, so they don't need to ask me questions. But the question can arise, if I am always beginning, how do I progress? If every time I start something, I'm using a beginner's mind, then how do I ever get past that? Well, thinking with a beginner's mind doesn't mean that we always have to start over. That's not the point of it. It is the action of setting aside what you think you already know to learn what you need to know. So beginner's mind says, hey, I'm not saying I don't know things. I'm just saying I can set those things aside when there's the opportunity to learn something new. Few people are comfortable with admitting their own ignorance. And that's when ego can arise as a hindrance. Few people can get past the ego so they cannot resist acting with a beginner's mind. Because the ego views that action as a tacit admittance that there are gaps in information. Ego doesn't like that. And ego doesn't like there might be gaps in practice, right? Things we think we know. What needs arise in the hearts of men, the ego knows, or at least it would like to believe it does. So again, beginner's mind, it's all about what is there to learn now. It's all about setting aside what you know, and I'm certainly not saying that there are not things that you know. But there are moments when you need to set that aside so that mind can open up and that heart can open up so you can learn something new. And maybe you learn something that is an opposite of what you think you know. Well, then you have to experience it and figure out which is right. Now, before I myself became a formal student of Buddhism, like most of you, I read lots of books on the subject. I was really a hardcore book Buddhist. I was already building up a library. And from the colorful and mystical Buddhism of Tibet to the formally structured Soto Zen, to the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, to translations of sutras by Edward Conze, I gathered a whole lot of information. Ooh, I crammed the head full of information. What I hadn't gained was the knowledge that comes through engaging that information with a real commitment to having a moment-to-moment practice. There just wasn't any real foundation to the information. It was all there, but couldn't put it together. And it wasn't until I sat before my very first Buddhist teacher and decided that his was the tradition that I felt connected with, and I began to listen with an open mind and an open heart, and I began to let my beginner's mind arise, that I discovered just how much I didn't know. At first, I had to consciously, and I mean work at it hard, to consciously set aside what I thought I knew so I could deeply listen to what was being taught. My discursive mind eventually stopped comparing what I was learning to what I had learned. And then real learning began. I have to stop here and say, is any of this easy? No. We get pretty attached to the things we know. And we get pretty attached to the things we think we know. It's hard to let that go. It takes practice. It takes effort. But with the view that I had come to, I realized that each moment that I was encountering was going to be unique, and each situation would be unique. So then each moment and situation would require me to hold to that beginner's mind so that I could appropriately engage whatever unique situation and experience I found myself in. Now, it is meditation practice that the beginner's mind can most readily be experienced. It's in a good meditation practice, we can really start to see that beginner's mind and see the value of it. In fact, it can really be the first thought of enlightenment that many practitioners recognize. This idea, ooh, this is something I don't know. You get into a good meditation posture, you're erect, but you're relaxed. You got your chin tucked toward your chest. The tongue is touching behind the upper front teeth. The eyes are kind of half-lidded. Arms are resting in the lap. You've got the hands in a nice meditation mudra, and you begin to watch your breath. Then suddenly the phone rings. The dog barks. The image of your Google Calendar pops up in your head. Did you mail the electric bill? Boredom arises, leg itches, and there goes your focus. That was the monkey mind. You stop the chattering of the monkey mind by gently starting over. You get into a good meditation posture, erect but relaxed, chin tucked, tongue touching behind the upper front teeth, eyes half-lidded, arms resting in the lap, hands in the proper mudra, and you begin again to watch your breath. The act of starting over, of gently returning to a practice, is the way of a beginner's mind. It is the practice of learning to be in the moment. It's the act and the thought of accepting that each moment is kind of a new beginning. Now, there's a parable that Shinryoku Suzuki Roshi would offer his listeners as an opportunity for a thought of enlightenment concerning a beginner's mind. Hello, Amy. And this is what it is. It's called the parable of overflowing. And I know some of you have heard this before, maybe from me, or maybe you read it somewhere. It's a very popular, short little parable. And it goes like this. Once a learned professor of Asian studies went to a Buddhist Zen master, and he asked him to explain the meaning of Zen. The master quietly poured a cup of tea. The cup was full, but he continued to pour. Well, the professor, he couldn't stand it any longer. So real impatiently, he questions the master and he says, "Why do you keep pouring when the cup is full?" And the master replies, "I want to point out to you that you are similarly attempting to understand Zen while your mind is full. First, empty your mind of preconceptions before you attempt to understand Zen." It's all about beginner's mind. Beginner's mind requires one to empty the cup between moments so that the next moment can fill it with that reality. You've been through the reality of the moment before, you're in a whole new reality. A moment can happen in the time it takes to blink. A moment can also happen over a period of years. It is the experience, it is the situation overall that defines the length and breadth of a moment. Being in the moment is the act of focusing on the reality of a given situation as it occurs, and then responding in the most appropriate manner that is likely to contribute to human flourishing, happiness, health, and harmony, and to the liberation of human beings, right? The alleviation of suffering. So a moment can be burning yourself on the stove in that moment, but a moment can also be having to deal with a long-term medical issue. That's one whole moment. So a moment can be the snap of a finger, but it can be a lifetime. So we have many different moments within our time from birth to death. So Norman Lear's hammock in between over and next, that is being in the moment. That is the emptiness between moments. That's the potential that comes with engaging life. Two simple words, over and next. We don't pay enough attention to them. When something is over, it is over. And we are on to the next. And if there was a hammock in between over and next, well, we would be swinging right there in the beginner's mind. So I'm going to give you an example in meditation. You're watching your breath and you breathe in and you breathe out. Well, sometimes people get caught up in the breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and they don't recognize that in the normal course of our breathing, we have that little pause in between, right? So we breathe in, and there's a short pause before we switch and we breathe out. That short pause, that's beginner's mind. And we have those short pauses all the time. Those opportunities to retrieve that beginner's mind, to realize it and use it because it's very valuable to us, because it can open us up to new information. But I told you guys that because of what's going on with this coronavirus pandemic that we're all having to deal with, that I want to bring what we talk about in each session into the situation we're dealing with right now. There's a lot of information being thrown at us from many different ways, right? Many different media, many different people. These are all folks that know what they know and want you to know what they know. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct thing to do. when you first got news of this coronavirus pandemic, and you first got news of how this could affect us, your beginner's mind should have clicked right in with the idea that, whoa, I've never dealt with this before. So I need to gather information. I need to look for people or media or doctors or whatever it is that I feel I can trust. Every moment. So we've got, let's call it a bunch of different moments within this, right? I said a moment can be a long period of time. So that's from the time we learned about coronavirus until the time that it fades away. And it will pass. So that's one moment that we need to keep a beginner's mind about, because we don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know how long we're going to be dealing with this. So we've got to keep that beginner's mind and not get stuck with the idea that, oh, it's going to end by Easter, as President Trump is wont to say. Because we don't know. We have experience with other outbreaks, with other pandemics, with other epidemics, but this is new, right? They don't call it the novel coronavirus for nothing. But then within that are other moments we have to deal with, like little short moments, like you get a cough and you feel a little congested and you start to freak out a little bit because, oh my God, what if I have coronavirus? But you don't know. So you go find out. You got those moments of dealing with family. You got those moments of dealing with your jobs. You got those moments of dealing with being quarantined in your home for weeks at a time. These are all moments that we have never had to deal with before. And it's going to take our mind, our beginner's mind especially, to be open in each of those moments so we can learn what we need to know, take the proper actions, excuse me, keep ourselves and our families and our friends and even a perfect stranger just as safe and healthy as we possibly can. This is a new moment, and it's something that we have to learn to deal with while it's going on. And then hopefully we can hold on to that information and with the hopes it doesn't happen again. But if coronavirus rolls around again, as some of these are likely to do, then at least we have some information to start with. But keep in mind, if it rolls around again, it's still a new moment. And we still need that beginner's mind because it could turn out differently. So we're in a unique situation. We're definitely having a unique experience. And it will definitely take a unique response.